अंकुर, भूमिका और जुबैदा जैसी क्रिटिकली अक्लेम फिल्में बनाने के बाद अब निर्देशक श्याम बेनेगल अपनी पीरियड फिल्म बोस द फॉरगॉटन हीरो की रिलीज के इंतजार में हैं। इस फिल्म के कंप्लीशन पर एक प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस रखी गई। नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस के जीवन पर आधारित ये फिल्म उनकी जिंदगी के आखिरी 5 सालों की एक झलक देती है। फिल्म बनाने के दौरान श्याम बेनेगल को काफी मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ा।
दिक्कतें तो आती हैं कोई भी फिल्म बनाने में, लेकिन ये बड़ी फिल्म थी और बहुत सारे जगह शूटिंग करनी थी हमें, क्योंकि कई देशों में जाके शूट करना था और इंटरनेशनल कास्ट भी था। तो उस किस्म की दिक्कतें तो हैं, क्योंकि उसके लॉजिस्टिक्स होते हैं, लॉजिस्टिकल प्रॉब्लम्स होते हैं, और फिर प्रोडक्शन जो है साइज़ काफ़ी बड़ा हो जाता है और लोकल यूनिट्स को साथ में लेके काम करना पड़ता है, जैसे हमने जर्मनी में किया, उज़्बेकिस्तान में किया, बर्मा में किया। तो ये सब दिस एड्स टू द प्रॉब्लम।
सबसे ज्यादा दिक्कत हुई नेताजी के किरदार के लिए सही कलाकार चुनने में। कई लोगों के ऑडिशन किए गए और अंत में ये किरदार सचिन खेड़ेकर की झोली में आया।
इस फिल्म की इस स्क्रिप्ट की तैयारी कुछ पिछले 2 साल से, मतलब अब तो 3 साल हो गए, 3 साल से चली रही थी। और शमा जैदी, अतुल तिवारी और श्याम बाबू, इन्होंने ऑलरेडी स्क्रिप्ट के लिए जो रिसर्च की थी, वो रिसर्च से मुझे एक्सेस था, और हर वो बात जो स्क्रिप्ट में है और जो जहाँ से ली गई है या इसका रेफरेंस यहाँ है, वो हर किताब मैंने देखी है, वो हर फुटेज डॉक्यूमेंट्री का जितना है, कुछ फिल्म्स डिवीज़न का फुटेज है अबाउट 1 आवर जो मैंने देखा हुआ है। फिर उनकी ऑडियो कैसेट्स हैं, उनकी स्पीच की रेडियो स्पीच फ्रॉम बर्लिन, फ्रॉम सिंगापुर, तो वो सारी चीज़ें मेरे पास थी। और हर सीन में, मतलब ये सीन अब कहाँ से कैसे लीड होता है, इसकी पूरी जानकारी शायद मुझे शूटिंग शुरू होने से पहले हो गई थी। और आई हैव डन दिस रोल, मतलब ये मेरे लिए बहुत बड़ी लग्जरी है।
You know, another aspect which I used to always see when I used to see her films is she had a very earthy appeal and a lot of determination on her face. Was it like that from the very beginning or over the years that you saw?
That's what I said. Earlier on, because she wasn't sure she wanted to be an actress. It's only when she decided that she was going to be, then suddenly she locked into it with a great deal of enthusiasm, interest and passion. Which remained lifelong with her.
Then, right from the first film, Charandas Chor to Nandi, I would like to discuss each film. Charandas Chor, how would you describe her as an actress in that role?
That's where you see her at her natural best, in the sense that she was not trained at all. And I suddenly noticed that she had a tremendous gift for comedy. Tremendous gift for comedy and farce, because she was supposed to play this very funny queen, which she did brilliantly, you know. And then I realized that this girl really had tremendous amount of talent.
Then going on to Nishant, a little about.
She gave a very measured and very intelligent performance. But as I said, even at that time, she wasn't very serious about film. It was only when she was doing Bhumika that she became very serious about her career in film. And Bhumika was the film that won her the National Award, her first National Award as the Best Actress.
And Manthan, that film.
Manthan, of course, made her known all over the country for that performance, also outside of India, because that was the first time I think Smita got noticed by people, audiences here, by film festival audiences all over the world. She got to be known in Paris, for instance. In France, she had a fairly strong, loyal following, even in France, in countries like France. And later, when in the early 80s, they in fact had a retrospective of hers in Paris, you know. So, which included all the films she worked with me on. And so she had become, among the Indian actresses, fairly well known. She and Shabana, the two of them, had become very well known even outside of the country.
Then there are 2 more films, Kondura and Anugraham.
Yes.
a little about these two films and her role.
You see, in Anugraham originally she was not supposed to be playing a part because the part that I wanted her to play was going to finish in a few days. But she was very keen on learning a great deal about film at that time. So she designed the costumes. She was the costume designer on the film as well as an actress. So she did both those things with Anugraham and Kundura.
And of course, coming down to her Mandi.
Yes. Now Mandi was after that of course I didn't have any opportunity to work with her because we didn't have any films which required her talent. And also of course 1986 she died, so there was that much time. But she became very, very busy, as you know, in the mainstream of Indian cinema, where also she made quite a name for herself. So she became a very busy actress. Basically, that was what it was. And although if I did have a role for her, I didn't make too many films after Mandi until 1986. I just made one more film, two really, Susman and Trikal. So there weren't any roles for her in those two films. But had she lived, of course, she would have been in many more films of mine.
You know, as an actress and your actress-director relationship, there must have been certain times when Smita, the actress, must have done real justice to your.
She did tremendous amount of justice to all the roles she played. I'm not disappointed with any of the roles she played in my films. Not one. Because she's given routinely an excellent performance. You can see the passion of her performance in each one of those films.
Was there any one of these films that she surprised you with her performance?
Yes, she did. For instance, Manthan. Because, can you imagine a girl at that time, girl of 20. She was just 20 at that time, and she played, started playing from about 16 all the way to the age of 40s. And each one of them, each facet of that did with such conviction.
And a person, an actress like her, how difficult was it to convince her? Or, was she also a natural all the way?
Who?
Smita.
Smita, yes, of course. You see, you need to have, I think, training is one aspect, but there's also a certain amount of talent. And talent and training, ability, it's just whether they get the right kind of opportunity or not. In her case, I think the only thing you could credit me with was that I gave the right kind of opportunity. But otherwise, everything else was hers.
Now, regarding Smita's roles in the films that she's done with you, which one was your favorite,
Well, all of them actually. When you think of the films, because each one is a different kind of part. It's not the same part she's playing, where you can compare it and accept. All of them, I have performances that are excellent. There's no performance, including Nishant, where her performance is exceptionally good. Well, you see, Devanand belongs to the generation of my cousin Gurudutt. And in fact, Devanand gave Gurudutt his first chance as a director. And both were relatively new at that time. Devanand, of course, I think preceded Gurudutt in the film business by about a year or two. But the most important thing, of course, about that whole thing was that how Devanand captured the imagination of young people. When I see young people, I mean teenagers and people in their early 20s at the time when he came into the film business. And that sort of connection with the youth that Devanand had, this is we are talking about still late 1940s and early 1950s. And 60 years later also, he's had a similar kind of connection with the youth of the country. It's quite extraordinary, because I don't believe that there is any film star in India who's had a run as a star and the central protagonist of any film story for that long. You know, I'm sure it's some kind of a record in the whole world, not just in India. The other thing was that he became not just a youth icon, but people used to imitate everything. You know, like today everybody imitates Shah Rukh Khan. Same way in his time, everybody imitated Devanand, particularly the manner in which he walked, the manner in which he talked, and his hairstyle. You know, that was a very distinct kind of style that he had, the way he used to puff up his hair. And that became a kind of, for several generations afterwards, not just one generation. So, in that sense, Devanand, I think, it was quite extraordinary. Continues to be quite extraordinary. But for many, many years, the moment the word Devanand conjured up an image that was quite wonderful, you know, happy-go-lucky, the particular way he lit his cigarette and kept it between his lips, the way he sang his songs, or the way he sang duets with his leading ladies, all these wonderful images of this man. And my earliest memory of him, of course, goes back when I was about, I would think about 10 or so, when Gurudat took me to a studio on Kedel Road here in Mumbai. I was visiting Mumbai with an older brother of mine, and I remember Gurudat taking us to the studio, and Devanand was acting in that film. I don't recollect what film it was. And he had a kind of romantic scene that particular day. So that was my first memory of him. And this is way, way back, you know, I mean, certainly 60 years ago.
Your take on the Devanand kind of cinema?
You see, Devanand created what one might call a nice, happy-go-lucky romantic comedy, and also the thriller. You see, before him, these two genres were not terribly well known. And when I say romantic comedy, it was, you know, very light-hearted, very much kind of college-going, college-type romance in the cinema. I think he excelled in that. He also excelled in thriller kind of films. And later, of course, he excelled in other kinds of films too, because the great classic film of his, The Guide, for instance, was an extraordinarily beautiful film.
Shyam Benegal, I saw Zubeda, and since then Shyam Benegal has always been the toppers on my wish list of directors. I've always wanted to work with Shyam Benegal. So for me, it was just the matter of that one phone call, and like I said, you know, I mean, at this early stage in my career that I got this opportunity to work with Shyam Benegal was fascinating.
Working with Shyam was a very integrated experience. By integrated experience, what I mean is that when the discussions were taking place, when the script was being written, the scenes were being discussed, and various other aspects of the scenes were being, openly debated, I used to be part of that. He never treated me merely as a photographer who will be given a brief to light up a scene or set up a camera or something like that. Never. And I was also, by temperament, very interested in the whole process. So working with Shyam was going through the process of filmmaking and not just coming in as a cameraman a month before the shooting started. It was not like that. I used to be, part of several discussions. And what happened was that whenever we went for the scene, and I must say that Shyam was at that time also trying to break away from the standard commercial kind of filmmaking. He was also trying to develop a new vocabulary for himself. So it was very interesting that when we went to shoot a scene, for example, I would insist that Shyam explain the entire scene to me and then stage it, because we were shooting mostly on locations. So I would like to know whether I could maintain a certain continuity of light, what kind of lighting scheme I should adopt if a scene was to be staged in a particular way. And Shyam is a great improviser. He never prepares his storyboards and things like that. He thinks on the spot, he interacts with actors, gets the best out of them, and the whole scene, you can see the scene emerging, taking shape in front of your eyes. So he's a great improviser that way. So he used to improvise the scene over there where I will watch, and then I will constantly look at whether it's possible, how to light it up, and if there are any problems, I'll tell him. So it was always working together in evolving the scenes. And this, I think, somewhere gave me the confidence that when I decided to make a film, that I will be able to direct it also. Because working with Shyam was, that way, not only as a cameraman, but it was also part of being the whole process.
You see, in the last 10 years, a good thing has also happened. In one way, it's a very good thing. In one way, it may not be such a good thing. Television has grown exponentially. And because a lot of people who come out of the film institutes of the country, Film and Television Institute is the National Film Institute, but there are other film institutes also all over the country. Now, all the people who are getting trained, they're all getting jobs. Many of them, most of them, have gone into television because television offers them more secure employment and greater opportunities of work. So you have a lot of these people who are getting work in television. Cinema, of course, automatically, after television came, is the second mass medium, audiovisual mass medium. The first, the biggest, is television. So most of them have gone into television. Formerly, before television became important, they were all wanting to make films, and they were finding it difficult. Today, they don't have to wait that long. They go directly into television. And I find so many young people now, in their mid-20s, they're doing so much work in television. They do a lot of soap operas. Many of them are documentarists. They do a lot of work, current affairs, news programs, so they're all getting absorbed essentially into television. Some of them still continue to make films. There are young filmmakers who are emerging. I have seen the work of 2 or 3 wonderful new filmmakers, both in in different parts of India. Particularly, there are a couple of young directors in Bengal. There are a couple of young directors in Kerala. I'm sure there must be young directors in other parts of India whose work I may not have seen. And so it's happening. I mean, it's just that, you see, there was a time when they got a great deal of media exposure because they seemed to be making news. But just now, I think a lot of newsprint goes into telling you about what's happening in television rather than what's happening in the cinema, So therefore, they're not terribly visible at the moment, but there is work going on.
Do you think this new cinema movement is dead? Does it no longer exist? Mr. Benegal, you've completed your shoot in South Africa for your film on Gandhiji's life there. How was it shooting there? Were there any interesting experiences, any problems that you faced?
Well, you see, the problems are always in the beginning because they've never been through a co-production, nor have we. First time there was this co-production between South Africa and India. So there were a few problems in the beginning, but after that I discovered that working there was wonderful. Mainly because, you see, they have a very good, it's a small infrastructure for film business, but it's an excellent infrastructure. The people are extremely well trained. The technical crew is extremely well trained. They have fairly good quality of actors, and everything works on a very professional basis. So I had no serious problems at all. A big film like this, we shot in 39 shifts, just 39 shifts. The whole film was shot, including battle scenes, including the big march scenes, because I had over 700 extras, So it was making the preparation towards the film, that was the most difficult. But once we started to shoot, there was no problem, because we shifted so many locations in 2 different provinces, in Transvaal and KwaZulu-Natal. So we were shooting in and around Johannesburg on locations that were often 50, 60 kilometers away, 70 kilometers away, and also around Durban. So, we were traveling, doing everything. So in about 1.5 months' time, in 6 weeks and 39 shifts, we finished the film.
This was a co-production with...
It was a co-production between the Government of India, the South African Broadcasting Corporation, and the Gandhi Memorial Trust in South Africa, also with some participation from the Ministry of Culture and Arts, South African government.
Now you said you were using 700 extras. Were these...
All of them from South Africa. Everybody except for 4 actors I took from here. I took 4 actors, my cameraman, and a couple of people, like I took my line producer from here, and I took the Indian costume designer. Otherwise, everything was South African.
That's quite something. Though we know that the film is based on particularly Gandhiji's life in South Africa, but there are bound to be comparisons. How do you think it will?
Well, I don't think about it. If there are going to be comparisons, there will be comparisons, but then they are really not comparable in that sense, because this is an aspect of his life which has not been shown before in the cinema. You have Admiral Gandhi, which deals with Gandhi primarily as the person who led India to freedom and who is the father of our nation. This is the development, the making of the Mahatma. That's what the film is called also, the making of the Mahatma. It is when Gandhiji went to South Africa as a very young man of 24, and how the challenges, the kind of things that he found, the world of South Africa of that time, which actually shaped him. So that's the story. Comparisons are bound to be.
Shabana asked me at the FTI before she became...
I never met her when when Shabana was in the FTI. I never met her there. She had finished her course at the FTI. In fact, I didn't know of her existence, nor did she know of mine, when she was either later in college and then FTI afterwards. It was really a fortuitous meeting, because one of my assistants, who used to live in Juhu, knew her because he also knew the family. And that's how I came to meet her when I was casting for Ankur. But she is quite an extraordinary person, because it's not only as an actress. Of course, no question that she is one of the most important actresses of her time, as far as India is concerned. But more than that, I think she is also, as a person, a deeply socially concerned human being. And her work, particularly in slum rehabilitation, in women's empowerment, and a whole lot of other subjects, is quite substantial and continuing, because her commitment is lifelong. So she has these 2 things she does. On one side, she's a brilliant, absolutely brilliant actress. On the other side, she also does some wonderful work when it comes to the society in which she lives.
Considering
in fact, I'd come to the end of my line when you say, how did I think of casting and my film? In fact, I hadn't found anybody. I'd come to the end of my line. I was a bit depressed that I hadn't found the actress of my choice, and of who my imagining in the very first film I was doing. And fortunately, Shabana turned out to be that person when she came to do an audition for me. But I really didn't need an audition, because her personality, there's so much liveliness, energy, vigor, and animation, in her personality, very animated personality. These qualities were quite enough to tell me that here was a great actress. Yeah, I cast her as the central actress, as central character, Lakshmi and Ankur. Of course, that was only the beginning for her because she achieved much more as an actress as the years went by.
सर आप हमेशा केस स्टडी पर ही फिल्म बनाते रहे हैं, अंकुर हो या हरी भरी, तो आपके प्रोजेक्ट्स क्या हैं नेक्स्ट इस तरह के?
अभी एक नई फिल्म बनाने जा रहा हूँ राजस्थान में, वो दिसंबर, जनवरी, फरवरी में शूटिंग करेंगे। उसके बारे में तो मैं ज़्यादा अभी आपको कुछ बता नहीं सकता क्योंकि वो अर्टिल वो सारा प्रोजेक्ट बिल्कुल सही तरह से तैयार होना चाहिए। उसके बाद मैं उसके बारे में बात करूँगा, अभी तो नहीं उसके बारे में बात करूँगा।
सर बोस द फॉरगॉटन हीरो मतलब एक नेशनल फिल्म पे बनाई गई थी, तो वो हमें लोग उनके बारे में जानना भी चाहते थे, लेकिन हमेशा
नहीं, वो तो रिलीज़ हो चुकी है, दिल्ली में उसको रिलीज़ किया था, अभी दूसरी बार रिलीज़ करने जा रहे हैं वो लोग। अभी सिंगल थिएटर में रिलीज़ करेंगे, पहले मल्टीप्लेक्स में कर रहे थे और मल्टीप्लेक्स के लिए कुछ लंबा था ये फिल्म, क्योंकि ये तो 3.5 घंटे की फिल्म है और मल्टीप्लेक्स में बड़ी तकलीफ होती है उनको ये इतनी लंबी फिल्म दिखाने में।
सर गंभीर जो फिल्में होती हैं दर्शक उनको कुछ ज़्यादा मतलब पसंद नहीं करते हैं कुछ इस तरह के ऑडियंस, क्या लगता है आपको गंभीर फिल्मों का क्या भविष्य है इंडिया में?
मतलब अगर लोगों को पसंद आए, गंभीर हो या कॉमेडी हो या कुछ भी हो, लोगों को पसंद आना चाहिए ना। अगर लोगों को पसंद आया तो आप ये इस तरीके से क्लासीफाई नहीं कर सकते हैं फिल्मों को। तो एक्चुअली फिल्मों को क्लासीफाई आप सिर्फ एक ही तरीके से कर सकते हैं, लोगों को ये पसंद आती है, नहीं ये पसंद आती है। और ये आप ये नहीं कह सकते हैं कि गंभीर थी इसीलिए लोगों को पसंद नहीं है। फिल्म खराब भी हो सकती है ना।
तो सर 900 से ज़्यादा ऐड फिल्में आपने बनाई है, कई डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज बनाई है, तो इससे क्या फिल्म बनाने की जो भूख है उसमें क्या कमी आती है कि ऐड और डॉक्यूमेंट्री?
नहीं कुछ नहीं, क्योंकि वो एक ज़माने में बनाता था मैं, अभी तो एडवर्टाइजिंग फिल्म बनाने में मुझे कोई दिलचस्पी है नहीं, लेकिन डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज कभी कभी अभी भी बनाता हूँ, लेकिन सिलेक्टेड सब्जेक्ट्स पे। लेकिन ये जो यहाँ PSBT में जो फिल्में बना रहे हैं उस किस्म की फिल्में तो मैं अभी बना नहीं सकता, क्योंकि वो इट्स वंडरफुल फॉर यंग पीपल टू मेक फिल्म।
सर आजकल जो संचार जो क्रांति आई है उसमें इंटरनेट है, रेडियो है, टेलीविज़न है, कई सीरियल्स इस तरह के आ रहे हैं, तो इनके कोई प्रभाव फिल्मों पे पड़ा है और फिल्मों का क्या भविष्य है?
बिल्कुल पड़ा है। तो एक्चुअली अभी फिल्म का लैंग्वेज जो है काफ़ी बदल चुका है, क्योंकि इम्पैक्ट जो है बहुत सारी चीज़ों का है ना। टेलीविज़न का इम्पैक्ट है, एडवर्टाइजिंग कमर्शियल्स का इम्पैक्ट है, फिर अभी आप इंटरनेट पर भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें आती हैं, विजुअल मटीरियल जो आता है, ये सब चीज़ें हैं, तो इनका इम्पैक्ट काफ़ी इसका फिल्म पे आया है, उसके लैंग्वेज पे आया है। मतलब जो लैंग्वेज और वोकैबुलरी जो आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं फिल्मों में, उस पर काफ़ी इम्पैक्ट हुआ है इसका।
Thank you, Mr. Benegal. With us this evening is Mr. Siddiq Barma, director of the inaugural film Osama. Mr. Barma won the Golden Globe for the Best Foreign Language Film. Thank you, Mr. Benegal. Yes, it is a pride for Maharashtra, and we would like to honor the director, Mr. Sandeep Sawant, for making such a wonderful film.
本日は、22歳でダマ世界に入り